Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. According to historical records, in 1521, the 10th emperor of the Ming Dynasty, Emperor Zhu Hozhao, also known as the Ming Wuzong, passed away. However, the court faced a major dilemma. Emperor Zhu had no sons. The chief grand secretary, Yang Yanhe, was extremely anxious because the nation could not be without a ruler. Since Emperor Zhu did not have a son, the only option was to find an heir among his brothers. However, Zhu Hozhao's only full brother, Zhu Howei, had passed away at a young age, leaving no surviving brothers. Thus, the search for a successor had to turn to the brothers of Zhu Hozhao's father, Emperor Xuanzong of Ming, Zhu Yucheng. Unfortunately, both of Emperor Xuanzong's older brothers had passed away early, and neither left heirs. Had they had sons, the throne would have gone to them, and Zhu Yucheng would never have ascended. Emperor Xuanzong also had a fourth younger brother, Zhu Yozhan, the Prince of Qing. Although Zhu Yozhan had already passed away by the time of Emperor Zhu's death, he had two sons. Unfortunately, Zhu Yozhan's eldest son, Zhu Hoshi, also died young. As a result, the throne of the Ming Wuzong passed to Zhu Yozhan's second son, Zhu Hoxian, who later became the Ming Shizong, or more commonly known as Emperor Jiaqing. In terms of familial rank, Zhu Hoxian was actually the Ming Wuzong's cousin. The tides of fate had turned, and the opportunity had come to him. Emperor Jiaqing, unlike his cousin Zhu Hozhao, was not troubled, as he had sons, and not just one. However, Emperor Jiaqing did have his own troubles. His first two sons died before reaching adulthood. And ultimately, the responsibility of succession fell to his third son, Zhu Ziji. Zhu Ziji became the 12th emperor of the Ming Dynasty, known in history as Emperor Muzong, with the reign title Longqing. He was one of the most low-profile emperors in the Ming Dynasty. So much so that his name was even mistaken in historical records. Despite this, during his brief 6-year reign, he accomplished some important feats, most notably helping the Ming Dynasty regain a substantial amount of silver, which came to account for nearly half of the world's silver supply at the time. Speaking of his name, although a name is just a label, it accompanies a person throughout their life. China is a country that places great emphasis on history, with strict requirements for historical accuracy. Mistakes in the names of ancient emperors were rare, but Zhu Ziji became an exception. Historically, his name was once mistakenly written as Zhu Zaiho, which is an amusing little error. In the annals of Emperor Muzong of Ming, there is no clear mention of Zhu Ziji's name, which became a key point of historical debate. However, in the annals of Emperor Shizong of Ming, it is written, the emperor ordered that his third son be named Ziji, and his fourth son, Zizhen. Additionally, in a Zhejiang provincial publication of the Imperial decrees of the Ming Dynasty from the 27th year of the Jiaqing reign, the name Zhu Ziji was clearly mentioned. From the biography of Emperor Muzong, there is no record of a name change. Therefore, the name Zhu Zaiho does not refer to Emperor Muzong. However, during the Wanli era, the scholar Lu Han mistakenly wrote Emperor Muzong's name as Zhu Zaiho in his book The Universe in Hand. Later historical texts continued to use this erroneous name. By the Qing dynasty, some historical texts began to mix up the two names even more severely. For instance, in the History of the Ming Dynasty by Fu Weilin, the name Zhu Zaiho appeared in the annals, while in the Luan Huanji section, it was written as Zhu Ziji, leading to much confusion about which name was correct. The origin of the name Zhu Zaiho remains unresolved to this day. Some scholars believe that Zhu Zaiho may refer to Qi Dongan. But from the perspective of official historical records, Zhu Ziji remains the more widely accepted name. Although Emperor Muzong's reign lasted only 6 years, his achievements during this period undoubtedly marked him as a capable ruler. When he ascended the throne, the Ming Dynasty was already facing numerous challenges: internal corruption, external threats, and an empire on the brink of collapse. At any moment, the empire could have crumbled. Just like a sick person needing treatment, a nation too requires reforms to cure its ills. Emperor Cixi might not have had the power to completely change the fate of the Ming Dynasty. But he was highly skilled at selecting capable officials and delegating authority. He supported and appointed a group of able ministers, including Su Jia, Gao Gong, Chen Yiqin, and Zhang Jiuzheng, who led a series of political reforms that revitalized the nation. Among these reforms, Zhang Jiuzheng's efforts stand out as a significant event in Ming history. Without Zhang Jiuzheng's reforms, the Ming Dynasty might not have experienced the mid-Ming Renaissance during the Wanli reign. And it was even uncertain whether the Wanli emperor would have succeeded to the throne. Politically, Emperor Muzong emphasized rectifying the officialdom and promoting clean governance. Militarily, he did not neglect his responsibilities. At the time, pirates along the southeastern coast were a major problem, frequently harassing people in Fujian and other regions. In response, Emperor Muzong employed famous generals such as Tan Luan, Qi Jiguang, and Wang Chonggu to strengthen the empire's border and coastal defenses. These measures greatly enhanced the nation's military strength and ensured the safety of the people. During the Longqing reign, ministers like Gao Gong and Zhang Jiuzheng believed that the success or failure of reforms depended primarily on selecting the right people and using them effectively. They paid special attention to personnel management and required that officials at all levels, from central to local, operate according to strict schedules and regulations. Additionally, under Gao Gong's suggestion, Emperor Muzong reformed the personnel assessment system, emphasizing the need to use people based on the task, meaning that positions should not be filled due to personal relationships, but according to the needs of the work at hand. The reform also placed special emphasis on the principle of merit-based selection, meaning officials were chosen based on their abilities, rather than promoting mediocre or corrupt individuals. For incompetent officials, strict evaluations and timely dismissals were enforced. To this end, Zhu Ziqiang also instituted strict discipline. Any official who failed to take office on time would be dismissed or demoted. Officials involved in corruption would be permanently dismissed and barred from returning to office. Imposter officials using false identities would be severely punished. At the same time, he eliminated redundant officials and staff to ensure a clean and efficient bureaucracy. During this process, Gao Gong repeatedly suggested and recommended capable individuals, such as appointing Gao Yi, former Minister of Rights, Zhu Heng, former Minister of Works, as well as famous generals like Tan Luan, Qi Jiguang, and Wang Chonggu. These individuals were appointed by Zhu Ziqiang to important positions. Through a series of political reforms, Zhu Ziqiang laid a solid foundation for the future of the Ming Dynasty, revitalizing the nation. During the Longqing period, large-scale river dredging and water conservancy projects were also undertaken, primarily for two purposes. One was to alleviate the recurring flood disasters, and the other was to solve the serious congestion issues in the northward transport of grain. In terms of flood relief, the most significant project was the dredging of the Wusong River and the Baimao River when Hai Rui served as the governor of Yingtian, and the project to redirect water into the sea. He combined disaster relief efforts with water conservation works, which had a positive effect on stabilizing social order in the southeastern regions. Moreover, the most noteworthy achievement was the opening of the maritime trade policy during Longqing's reign. During the Ming Dynasty, Zhu Ziqiang's ancestors had adhered to a closed-door policy of seclusion, which continued until the establishment of the Qing dynasty. This policy caused China to miss out on the great age of exploration, ultimately laying the groundwork for the humiliation China would face centuries later at the hands of Western powers. Thus, the opening of the trade routes during Longqing's reign caused a great stir. This policy ushered in a new era for folk trade along the southeastern coast. Throughout Zhu Ziqiang's reign, 353 million taels of silver flowed into the Ming Dynasty from around the world, a figure that nearly accounted for half of the global silver supply at the time. According to related historians, Ming Emperor Zhu Ziqiang was a controversial ruler. While his reign had some achievements, he was also widely criticized for certain actions. A national leader who lacks a sense of crisis and is constantly immersed in honor and pleasure can easily let their guard down. And Zhu Ziqiang was such a person. He handed over political power to the grand secretaries, entrusted border defense to military generals, and delegated the nation's wealth development to private commercial organizations. One could say that he adopted a three-pronged approach, no longer intervening excessively. Believing that the Ming Dynasty was already on the right track and that the country's power would continue to grow. As a result, he withdrew to the palace and indulged in a luxurious personal life. In the first 2 years of his reign, Zhu Ziqiang appointed 13 concubines. And the number of concubines in the imperial harem grew rapidly. To satisfy his desires for beauty, he selected around 300 new palace women each year. All aged between 11 and 16, youthful and beautiful. His sexual indulgences also triggered social unrest, even causing a trend of forced marriages in the Jiangnan region. Ordinary people, to avoid having their daughters sent to the palace, resorted to extreme measures to marry off their daughters as soon as possible. Despite this, the number of women in Zhu Ziqiang's harem grew every year, and his sexual desires were largely fulfilled. However, excess led to consequences. His indulgence in pleasure ultimately weakened his health, leading to an early death. Tragically, his death occurred only 6 years after his ascension to the throne, and he was buried in the Ming Zhao tomb. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.